Welcome back to the channel, everybody. We're here to talk Walking Dead, The Ones Who Live episode number 3. I'm Tyler, joined by Hayden and Nick. Guys, the third episode, we're halfway through this thing already. It's
That's
going by
wild
fast.
to think. Yep.
I know.
For sure. You have these short seasons.
Third episode came out, and, this one was a little different than the first two. We're sort of getting the pieces onto the board about what's going to be happening here in the final 3 episodes. But just to go around, spoiler-free, initial thoughts. Nick, to you first. Initial thoughts on the episode.
Yeah, definitely the weaker of the first two, in my opinion. This was still a good episode. I loved a lot of portions of it, but this was more of like a building of the lore episode than
Absolutely
the other 2 episodes were, which makes sense as we're going to be building. In this episode, you build multiple different sides, multiple different characters, multiple different points where this could potentially go in. But yeah, overall, I liked a lot of things with it. The story was pretty good. We'll get into spoilers later with that, but I do felt like my one nitpick, is like the shots were a little shakier compared to the other 2 episodes, but that's more of like an expectation thing. But overall, I thought it was pretty good.
Okay. Hey, what about you?
I was excited to get into this one because I feel like with episode 1 and 2, we had a lot of questions we were asking, and we knew that those episodes were going to answer them, and we're going to be kind of fan servicey, right? Where we were going to see where Rick's at in episode 1, and where Michonne's at in episode 2. I feel like this one I went into with the least expectations. And I don't mean the least expectations in terms of quality. I just mean like there were so many unknowns. Like I didn't really know where we were headed, and I was just kind of excited to sit back and learn what we were going to learn and enjoy the story they put out for us. And I ended up really enjoying what we saw. And I think it's, expanded. Rick and Michonne's dynamic went places I didn't expect it to go. And just there was a lot of things this episode did really well that surprised me. And at this point, I'm fully in. I'm ready to see where we go. And as a Walking Dead nerd, I love all of the lore expansion, even though for more casual audiences, I wonder if this episode will hit for them if they're not as interested in that, because I think this episode spends a lot of time going really into the weeds of the rules of the new world and how things are going to work.
Yeah, I feel
we got
like
a lot of hints too. I'm sorry, Tyler. You go first. I'm sorry.
The episodes that fans are most divided on throughout the series are the ones that are more character focused, I feel, with less of, the intense, zombie action, etc. This was definitely one of those. And I find these like reset type episodes, they hinge on a couple things for me personally. So one, a lot of them don't do a lot of like building up an actual characters. They just sort of reposition the story. And this one actually invested in the characters too, though. Like we learned quite a bit in the conversations between Rick and Jadis. As you mentioned, Hayden, like a little bit about the dynamic of Rick and Michonne's relationship right now and that going some unexpected places. So I like character-wise where we're at. And, I feel like it's a better episode than just sort of repositioning the board. So I'm happy with it overall. Nick, I would probably disagree just a little and say that I like it better than episode 2.
That's fair.
I get it.
I do too.
But I get it.
I do too.
So what were you going to say? Sorry, go ahead.
I was going to say that with the character-based could hamper a lot of the casual fans. But overall, I think this was a necessary direction for them to take because we were eventually going to get one of these episodes where it was going to be more character-based. But the direction they went with, the one word I always come out with when watching this, because I watched this like 2 times already, is intrigue. This intrigued me. And while I do have some cons to some of the stuff, it still intrigued me. And there were a lot more pros than cons in this. But yeah, I'm super excited for the next episode. I say this every single episode. I'm super excited for the next one because
I think the hype
you only get to say it 2 more times after today. So
I'm sorry. Yeah, worse for worse. Right. I'll go on another. I'll go on another article binge later if I keep doing it. Keep track.
You're good. Good.
Let's do a quick plot recap. Obviously, spoilers from this point forward.
Yes.
So, we begin the episode basically where we left off, where we're at like 3 different points in time. We go back in time to where Rick first joined this group, and then we go into just the very, very like recent past, and then we just rejoin time where it was at the end of episode 2, where the conversation with Jadis is happening, and we learn more about just kind of the threat of like, if you try to leave, I will kill everybody that means anything to you, basically.
Yep.
Sort of like a flexing of power.
Absolutely. Yeah. And we know, like, logistically, like, they have the ability to do that. They have weapons that
the
no
manpower,
one else
they
has.
have the weapons, they have everything that Alexandria Hilltop and our group that we know and love.
Yeah.
Like,
I
don't even think they have a simple tank, if I remember correctly.
They could, and the CRM could carpet bomb them, and
all they have is basically like 1800 style weapons.
Yeah,
these guys have like 2,400 whatever futuristic weapons.
Yeah.
And I love the futuristic weapons that they introduced, and we'll get to those later. But I love what they did with those.
So we continue. We learn about, because one of the questions I had was like, well, if that's the rules of the game, then obviously Rick's going to be trying to kill Jadis, right? To eliminate that threat. But she's thinking, and she had thought of that, so she has ways to make sure that that can't happen. So she's stored all the information in a place where they can easily find it and find out who they are. And once that happens, they'll be in danger. So Rick then turns from trying to escape with Michonne to just trying to get Michonne out. He realizes, I think, that he is resigned to being there in the CRM, and he is willing to sacrifice his future for Michonne and for his family. So he tries to get her to leave, and tries many times, like in different ways.
Yeah.
Like one trying to get her to just leave, through love, and then literally at the end, basically being like, "We're done, it's over." Trying to push her away so she leaves.
Yeah.
And
which is really devastating to see after
I would
see these characters for years, and this is where they're at.
Yeah.
It makes sense, but it's just like it's so sad.
The timing of it is what surprised me. Like, the timing of what happens in this so far is the one thing that most surprised me, because a lot of these things came out of nowhere, but this just, I don't want to say it came out of nowhere, but because it makes sense, but like, it was a direction of Rick and Michonne's, reunition and coming back together. It's like a direction that, it's sort of like a curveball in baseball. Like, he didn't think it would go this way, but it just curves into a strike. Like, it's crazy.
So then at the same time, we have Thorne, who gets a much bigger role in this episode again, like episode 1, and she has been promoted. So now is got the briefing that the
echelon briefing, as they call it.
The echelon briefing, yep.
Yeah.
Which Rick was about to get by the end of the episode, right? Yep. And I think we'll get to that in a sec, why we'll have to wait on that probably, but it's a big teaser, because it's now like they know something we don't know, and we want to know it, right? And I'm sure we'll learn it probably around episode 5-ish, would be my guess. But anyway, she's promoted, and she's starting to drink the Kool-Aid now.
Oh yeah, she's investing.
Yep.
And it seems like she's invested in Rick too, just as like there, she has that line where she says that he's my only family, right? When she takes Michonne and like all 3 of them, they all go talk in the bombed out stadium about where things are at, and they kind of let Michonne in and be like, okay, we're gonna let you be an A. We know you're an A. We usually don't let A's in, but like, you have potential, and Rick's pushing for you, and I care about Rick. And that scene where it's like, where you see Rick is behind all of them, so he can see that she has her knife drawn, that Pearl Thorne does, and then Rick pulls his pistol out. Like, I was just nervous as hell the whole time, sitting there thinking like, I don't want anyone here to die. Like, because even though Pearl is an obstacle, I like her.
Yeah, this episode really got, like, the first episode I wasn't a big Pearl, like I was kind of, I don't really like the character, like I wanted to see where this went. This episode really made me care for the character of Pearl, made me intrigued with she's going to be going. And I think the biggest takeaway with Pearl and her promotion, you can see it throughout this episode, she is what Rick could have became if Michonne never came over. I feel like they
Absolutely.
would have been in the same level. I mentioned this to you, Hayden,
Mhm.
like before we got on, and it really intrigues me with how they're going to handle, once eventually Rick and Michonne escape, because we all know that's going to happen. They're going to make another attempt. I
Yeah,
wonder
they got
how
to.
Pearl's going to react with that. And it's so many different directions they go. But I love the neat detail of how Pearl was grabbing the knife, lifting it up, and Rick was, getting his gun ready. He's
Mhm.
willing to protect his family, and even though that I think previously Rick told Michonne go. And
Right.
I love the neat detail
And
as
he does
well.
after that too, right?
Yeah,
Like it's
after that as well. Yes, exactly. And then Michonne has that one talk saying that I was once told by a friend, whenever you have to know the right opportunity to go, which is great writing, great storytelling. Like, I hope they keep growing on that, where you have to know when to go, you have to know when this, and Rick will realize that message and realize his opportunity to go. So I like where it's
Then
going. I really do.
we come to the end of the episode then, which we'll transition into the favorite moments.
Mhm.
This is my favorite moment. They're on the helicopter. They travel out to Oregon, so we see that
forward
part
operating
of
base.
the serum. Yep. And so that's kind of cool. Opposite end of the country. First time we've seen that in the main Walking Dead universe, right outside of the spinoffs.
True.
But
You could maybe throw in Daryl with the France, going to France, because that's kind of across the world.
Right,
sure.
but we've never seen this part of the country.
This part of the country.
Yeah, exactly.
So, but then we get to our my favorite moment in the episode. They're on the helicopter back, and Michonne's like, "Screw this!" They're in a storm. She grabs Rick and pulls them off of the helicopter. And the episode
I don't
goes
like
black.
that scene at all.
Crazy
I
cliffhanger.
hate that scene. First off, yeah, it was a crazy cliffhanger, but I'm like, what? Like, you're in the middle of a rainstorm and a thunderstorm. You got no parachute. You're high up in the air. Like, come on. Like,
They were
what are you
flying
thinking
pretty
here?
low. They were flying pretty low.
They were flying
and I'm
low.
sure, and because of the storm, and I'm sure because they're the CRM, they got to have contingency plans and shit. There's no way Rick didn't have a parachute or something on, and like I don't know. That's the kind of thing that like
probably, but
I'm willing
I
to suspend disbelief.
Yep.
Yeah, that's fine. And
like Nick, it's a show. It's a show about zombies.
I know.
I know. 40-foot fall.
I know, and I didn't
it.
really like the shot too. That was like one of the shots where Rick and Michonne leave the airplane. And I just didn't like that shot at all. It was too sloppy. But
that was a good shot, actually. I thought there was nothing wrong with that.
I'm not really that big of a fan of that shot.
Well,
maybe it could have been more crisper, but
the interesting thing is that shot I saw side by side. There's a really similar scene in Fear the Walking Dead, and it's actually where Travis exits the show when he falls out of the helicopter. The way that they do the reverse shot of the two characters and their reactions, and then the actual shot of the door as he falls out is almost exactly the same. So I'm kind of wondering if maybe they're planting the seeds here where they're like, well, if Rick and Michonne survive this, maybe they're trying to give themselves an opportunity to bring Travis back later. You know what I mean?
I don't know, because Travis was, I think, shot in the neck. So that would be pretty hard if you...
True. They were a lot higher up.
It's Fear. Then again, it's Fear the Walking Dead. The story doesn't make any sense on that show. So
I'm convinced at this point, no one's dead in fiction until you see a body. Point blank. Period.
Yeah. Even then, like, so I liked it though because of this. Like, it's clear character work. Michonne is essentially saying, knowing all the risks of jumping out of a moving helicopter in the air, I would rather die than go back there and risk losing Rick. And this is where the line came out where she's talking to the artist, right? And talks about how, like, she found him, but or he found her or whatever, but she's still looking for him. Because he is the man she knew, even though the physical person is there. Yeah. The man she knew is not. And so it's an effort to save him, to get him out of there. And you hear him scream no. So he is sort of the edge of buying in, right? So go ahead.
It's sort of like what she did when the whole Negan war hit, where Rick was willing to give up everything just, to save everything for Negan. And it's sort of like Michonne was the one that helped get that, Rick out instead of that Rick into shelter. Because at the end of episode 1, Rick was in shelter, and you could sort of see him coming out of his shelter. Like he isn't wearing his mask as often as he is even on, the CRM base. I've
Mm-hmm.
noticed like a lot of those scenes he has his helmet off, which you don't you see it once in a while,
Yeah.
but he always has it off now, which I think is a great detail of like he's coming out of his shelf, he's letting his face be seen with
Right.
others, which is cool.
Yeah.
I do love the scene where Michonne actually meets the artist, which I think, and I love the nice detail where they go, "Oh, I didn't know how to nail the boy," in Carl.
Oh,
Oh man, that was
that was devastating. That got me misty eyed, man. Because
it did.
it's a good callback for fans of the show, but also it makes sense for Rick that like there are these moments where he was really hanging on to his past, right? And and to think about that, to think about like Rick going to the CRM initially when we saw him with Jadis in the flashback, and he's like, "I'm leaving." Like one of the first things he tells her is like, "I'm going home," and especially like if you think about even where they're at that point, it's an even bigger sacrifice because it's like that's shortly after All Out War, right? So it's like, and Rick doesn't know it. Obviously, Alexandria and the Commonwealth have advanced a lot since he's been gone, but he doesn't know that. Like and we're seeing people walking around and exchanging actual money to buy corn dogs and what were they, curly fries or onion rings or whatever it was.
Yeah.
Like, and he's like, I would rather put all of this aside to go be out in the sticks with my family and struggle to make it just to be with them.
I'll tell you one thing though. Definitely not my favorite scene. My favorite scene, Rick basically says to Jadis that her haircut sucks. I'm like, I said the exact same thing. Like, and I'm like, I like she looks awful. And I love the quote as well, where he's like, "Great, you gotta." His quote was like, "You're a hero with an awful haircut." I'm like, oh,
yeah. He goes, I made a note of the line. So she's basically saying like, you need to be grateful for me because I saved your life. And then Rick, is talking about Michonne, and goes, well, now I get to save hers too. And then there's a pause, and he goes, you're a hero with a shit haircut. And it's just like that like last dig he needs to get in. That would be that's my favorite moment too, I think, because
that's my favorite moment.
It's just such Rick sass. And like all of the Jadis, like I'm a believer of Jadis as an antagonist now. Like, because there's I wasn't sure how well it was going to work going into the show, but I buy into it, and it's fun. Like there's almost comic relief to her, where like she's funny, but she's also like really scary because you know what she's capable of, and you know what she knows and the authority she has within the CRM. And there's that scene where like, because you took my favorite scene is obviously got to be the shit haircut one, but if I had to pick another one, I think my favorite scene from the episode is when Michonne realizes that Jadis is there. And and Rick walks up there, is like, doesn't matter. And she's like, Jadis? And like, it kind of recontextualizes a lot of things too. I mean, we talked about Easter eggs a bit on other videos on the channel, but like, there's some stuff you can kind of extrapolate from the lore we're learning here, where it almost seems like, so we learned that Jadis had a deal when she had her garbage people. They had a deal with the CRM, and they were giving them supplies, right? Which is interesting in full circle. If you think about it, like that's how Rick gets the guns to win All Out War. So it's almost like the CRM were funding Rick against Negan as this like proxy war. And it seems like their goal was always to extract Rick because Jadis was telling them about him. And we finally got it confirmed that like the reason Jadis went right to military and got to skip the 6-year consignee program, which is not a short amount of time, is because the CRM thought what they gave Rick, what she gave them by giving them Rick,
sort of like an inside person.
Valuable. Yeah,
sort of like an inside person. And here's my one question: I wondered, did she ever offer the garbage? I hate the garbage people. I'm just going to call them trash people. Did she ever offer like members of her trash people out to the CRM? And I'm just wondering. It makes me more interested in like.
Well,
I
none
hope
of
we
them
get
survived.
like a flashback on there.
None of them survived except for her because.
No, I know.
Simon
I'm saying before she met Rick. Before she met Rick. And
oh yeah, who knows?
Maybe the deal with Negan was when she made the deal to betray Rick for Negan, and was that if they win, a lot of those people go to the CRM for a deal for weapons or supplies or something like that.
Right.
I don't know. Maybe it's just me
Yeah.
thinking, but I love where they're going with Jadis.
It seems
I
like
do
Jadis's
love it.
role within the CRM is recruiter, but very high level, where like they're trying to get
Yes.
her. Because I think my read, the way that, like, I feel like whenever they talked about how the CRM has a 500-year plan, right? So you gotta imagine within that 500-year plan, part of that is a successor. And like, peace and love, I love Major General Beale. I love that actor, but he's not young, right?
Yeah.
Like, when the
No.
leader of your military is 70 plus, you gotta start thinking about who's gonna take over that role next. And I think Okafor was the natural next evolution. Now that he's passed, we have a power vacuum. And I think they've been thinking about that, and I think Jadis is gunning for Rick to be second in command with her at the
I
top.
think that Pearl is going to be second in command. That because Rick escaped multiple times, but I think that they're planning to have Pearl be that second in command, and then they're going to go. If Rick buys in, then they're going to have Rick be like the second hand man. But who knows? But I am. It's again, it goes back to the word intrigue.
Yep.
I'm super intrigued with how they're going to be handling the CRM now, and with Pearl, who's got promoted quickly. And I noticed too that everyone, when you say drinking the Kool-Aid, they always drink the alcohol that's been given. And I've never seen Rick drink it once, but those who buy into the system drink it, and those who are a part of the CRM as well drink the alcohol too.
That's such an interesting visual metaphor. I never noticed, because you're right. Whenever other people drink, I don't think Rick does. And it's kind of cueing us into that, like, he's not trying to socialize with these people. Like, he's still keeping himself distant and alert. You know what I mean? So
he's not drinking the Kool-Aid. So that was the one visual metaphor I noticed and wanted to mention. But
yeah.
One other thing I have
cool.
is so there's a line from, it might even be the series finale, that of The Walking Dead. That's my favorite line of the entire show, and I think really hits home after the last 4 years we've been through in the real world, right? But because it is like the 4 years ago, basically, like this week is when COVID began, right? So
everything changed forever.
But what I noticed is a theme, and I saw it again here. Like there are the people in power obsessed with making everything just like it used to be.
Yep.
And my favorite line of the entire series is Daryl saying, basically, that's your fucking problem.
Yep.
Right?
You built this place to be like the old world. That's your fucking problem.
Yep.
Yeah. Season 11 wasn't a great season, but that was my favorite line of the season.
For sure.
So.
Good moment. And so Tyler, go ahead.
No, and I just think that it's an interesting thing. And like, you see all these people because whenever you have these moments with characters where the conversation comes up, like, what did you do before all of this, right? No one was ever like a senator or like a CEO or something, right? They're usually like a high school teacher or like a pizza delivery boy or something like that, right? Why would these people want everything to go back to the way it was?
Exactly. And it's because the people, like, you see a lot of the people who used to be in power, when they get power in The Walking Dead, they try and make the world fit their narrative and fit the structures that gave them power before. Like, because the thing is, like, we talked about, like, the city and how it was, like, like, I was joking about getting the corn dogs or whatever, right? But as soon as I saw they had the sign that was like, this costs $5 at the farmer's market, I was like, fuck. Like, that's not good. Like, that tells me something, right? Because, like, I think the only positive side we've seen about their world compared to ours in The Walking Dead is that, like, people kind of contribute of their own ability and of their own need, rather than, like, there's not really a hierarchy of structure, right? Especially within Rick's group. Negan's group was functioned more like a capitalist society, right? But with Rick's group, it was always just like, Rick makes decisions. There are a couple people below that are kind of his counsel, but everybody is kind of on an even playing field, and they contribute to the group what they can.
Yep. And basically, if you contribute, you stay and you're taken care of. And if you don't, then different conversation, right? But I'm the same as you. Like, when I see the money start again and things like that, it's like, what are you doing? But but you're right.
It feels like a regression.
This show talks a lot about power and how, It always has. And how power corrupts, right? You look at like Negan was a gym teacher, for Christ's sake, and
Yeah.
right. So it's and I forget what the governor did prior, but it wasn't anything like
He was a truck driver.
Yeah, he was a truck driver. So it wasn't
he
I
was
was
a
gonna
truck
say it wasn't anything like huge. So
No.
you see these people that get a dose of taste of power, right? And all of a sudden you're right, shape everything so that the world as it was now favors them, so they like it. So that's always like an interesting aspect to me of that. And Rick has always been the push against that, the counterforce to that. So
For sure.
You could probably like in the Alexandria time when they first went. I remember the scene where Rick and Michonne were speaking, saying we're going to take this place over one way or another. That's probably the one only hint of like how power corrupted him, but it just didn't super corrupt.
Yeah.
But
I still
just wanna
remember
throw that
Rick ever
moment in
being
there.
like, "Oh, you can't make rent this month. Oh, eviction notice on your door."
Exactly.
Right.
Exactly.
Right. So, yeah, he always wanted to make sure people were taken care of for the most part. But anyway, that was just my other thing. So where do you think we go from here? Hayden, I think you had mentioned you thought we might see another character coming. Was it the one you mentioned earlier or somebody different?
Yeah, and I don't, it was Travis, and I don't think that's going to happen anytime soon. Like, I don't think that happens this season. I think if that happens, that's way down the road. I just noticed the echoes of that. But did you guys watch like the preview of the next episode? Because they always give you like a 30-second kind of teaser of like the next
Yes,
Dawn.
I did.
So the thing that's interesting to me is it seems like wherever Rick and Michonne end up next episode, it very much looks like a lab to me. And we know from World Beyond that the CRM did a lot of experiments on walkers and on people who they would deliberately capture when they were bit, or they would have bit if they already captured them to see how long it took them to turn and stuff like that. And a lot of the characters we're seeing are in lab coats and stuff. So I feel like next episode is probably going to be a lot about kind of the science. We've seen a lot of the military aspect of the CRM. I think we're going to maybe get into the science aspect of it, kind of expand that world. Because I think what this show is building to is they're trying to show us why the CRM is a danger to the world and why the CRM needs to be taken down so that Rick and Michonne can do that. And I think the CRM is too big of a threat to, like, you're not going to win that war by annihilation or even attrition, right? I think what we're building towards is Rick and Michonne, and more so, and potentially Pearl, we'll see where she goes, trying to shift the culture of the CRM and the direction they're headed.
I hope that they explain that PPP card in the next episode, because that was something that,
The one
according
left
to
behind when
Gimple,
Heath
they
went
were
missing.
gonna. Yeah, and I hope we see Heath in the next. I don't know if we will, because I don't know what his contract is. Because that's one of the main reasons why I don't see the Travis thing happening. Because I think he's contracted in the Avatar trilogy. I think I might be mistaken there.
That's why he left. He left to go shoot the Avatar sequels. Yeah,
which I don't blame him, because those movies are pretty great. I love the last Avatar.
He's probably making better money on Avatar than he did on
that
Fear.
too. But I just hope if they're going to the Portland, they explain that PPP card, and I hope we see Heath in the next episode. That's what I really hope happens. But yeah, it's definitely going to be a look in the laboratory side. Maybe we'll even see how they build some of the weapons that they made, like the gas bomb, the new guns, which it sort of felt like a staple gun, but like in a rifle form, which I thought was pretty cool.
It's very No Country for Old Men. I think it's shooting like a. It's like how they. It's like how they kill cows in a slaughterhouse when they have like a bolt.
Sugar nonsense.
Yeah, it's wild, but it's effective and it's quiet, that was interesting. They talked about that being a stealth operation.
Yeah, but I like where it's going. But we'll see what happens. I still hope we get Morgan at the end of this. We've had so many hints that he was coming. I think we will. That's my prediction. Is in the season finale, we get Morgan to show up.
Yeah,
and who knows?
The season finale is called The Last Time or something like that, and the episode that Morgan was reintroduced and when him and Rick re-met each other in the beginning of season 6 was called First Time Again. So I have a feeling Rick's coming back. Oh my
god! I did not realize that.
Yeah, it's happening. They're planting the seeds.
Oh, for sure. And this episode actually convinced me more than ever that we're going to see him. But I don't want Morgan in like episode 4 or 5.
No.
I said it before on an earlier recording, but I want Morgan to be the very last shot we see, or like the very last exchange in the final couple minutes to set up.
That would be
2.
very Walking Dead.
Yeah, I think this needs to. I just think this needs to be Rick and Michonne's journey together.
Agreed.
And they need to figure it out themselves. And then we can introduce other characters into the dynamic more. But
I love that this episode was titled "Bye To," is it's like Rick trying to say goodbye to Michonne and send her on her way. The titles of the Walking Dead show, a lot of them are so cool and so make sense.
Right.
And I love like I said, the first 3 titles, Years Gone By, were just perfect.
Yeah, to echo the pilot.
Yeah.
Because they straight up broke up. Like, that's the thing that hit me, is that, like, Rick literally told Michonne, like, we are done. Yes, dude. He literally was like, I love you, but we can't do this anymore. He has a line where he says, everything we had is broken. Yeah. And he's so adamant about it that he like threatens violence against her. Like,
I don't think that'll stick though, Hayden. I think that was more just to push her away, right?
No, because in the next scene they would get back together.
No, I know. I'm just saying, like, he's trying to sever that tie.
That's why I said I don't think. That's why I don't think it is a breakup. I don't know how those go.
Maybe breakup's the wrong
question, but
maybe breakup's the wrong word. But I don't know. Like, you know what I mean? Like, he's trying to sever ties in a way that he's
like a mutual parting of ways in a business.
No, he's trying to push her away.
Right?
It's not mutual. He is trying to force her to accept leaving, right? And that's where he's going. But anyway, like let's wrap this up with a score. So as a team, just final thoughts. We gave it an 8.25. I think pretty good episode. I think, you know, my opinion, I think Hayden, yours too, a little bit better than episode 2, but probably not a huge difference between the two.
Nick brought down the average a little bit on the score.
Sorry, I'm not saying this is the worst episode ever, like Fear the Walking Dead level of bad, but this was still a good episode. It was more of like a storyline driven, character development, character growth. And I also didn't like a few of the shots in the scene, which I had to knock that. I was originally going to go like in the 7.5 range, but for me, but you guys convinced me to raise it up a little, and as a group together, we got to an 8.25, which I understand.
Slower episode, inherently just less ground to cover, right? So it's not going to blow our minds as much as the first 2. For sure.
Yeah, slow doesn't necessarily mean bad, though, right? It's
no, I don't think so either.
One of my favorite, like limited run series is The Man in the High Castle, which by all accounts is pretty slow, right?
Yes.
That is a very dialogue heavy show. And I love like season 1 of that, etc. So it is, you can do it if you have good character development. This episode did, in my opinion. So
absolutely.
Right, let's get out of here. Watch for more videos throughout the week on things like Easter eggs, etc. Maybe previews for the next one, and let us know what you think of episode 3. What did you like? What did you not like? What would you give it overall? And where do you think we're going next with The Ones Who Live? So until next weekend, have a great week, everybody. Enjoy whatever Walking Dead you watch, and we will talk to you soon.
Take care, y'all. GG's.
Bye-bye.